Welcome to CSO Connected. I'm delighted to be here today with Guy Rubin. We're going to talk about a very important topic to every CSO, and that's forecasting. How do we accurately predict what sales are going to close, what revenue is going to come in, and when can we expect to see it? Guy is the founder and CEO of Ebsta, a company he started in 2012.
That's right, yeah.
We'd love to hear a little bit more about you and about your company.
I founded Ebsta in 2012, and we help companies understand the relationships they have with their customers, and in particular, we help to identify which of those relationships are not getting enough attention. So what we tend to do for our customers is map out all of the relationships they have by usually interrogating things like their email traffic and their calendar events and their call data over the last, say, year or two. And we build out a graph of all of their historical relationships at every account and try and identify who in the business has the closest relationship with each contact, when they last engaged, and the strength of each relationship. We then use that information to help them understand which deals are not getting enough attention or where there's not enough traction with the deal, and perhaps help customers fail faster, I suppose.
It sounds really invaluable. It sounds like a huge time saver. And I know we were speaking earlier, it's a very agile approach to sales, something that we perhaps don't talk about enough in sales, but it's so important, isn't it, that the cost of a salesperson's time is one of the highest in the business. So anything we can do to make that more efficient and cost effective is going to be incredibly meaningful.
Yeah, salespeople tend to be very optimistic about the deals that they're working on. So, so there's a lot of time spent on deals that are never going to close.
Yeah.
And so early indicators or signposts to understand where they're really not getting the traction that they would need to get that deal over the line helps managers to direct their staff, their teams to work on more productive opportunities.
Yeah, and I know one of the things that there's a shift in as well is trying to even figure out which ones are more profitable, because sometimes that pound sign might look really big, but actually the profitability of that opportunity is not nearly what we would want it to be to demand that level of resource.
Yeah, sure. We see a lot when a customer signs up with Ebsta. We very quickly deliver a benchmark of. We go through all of their existing pipeline to understand which of the deals they're working on are getting the most attention, and it's fascinating to see that more often than not, some very low value deals are getting a lot of attention because the customer's quite happy to engage with the sales reps, while the ones that are actually going to move the bar, the stuff that's going to help you achieve your target, perhaps isn't getting anywhere near the level of focus that it should, or getting the traction that you need with the customer, because it's hard work.
Yeah.
So the sales guys are happy to ring the bell, but if the deal value is very low, then it doesn't really help.
No, it doesn't really help. And it's hugely consuming from an internal resource standpoint. So there's a lot of conversations that go on over deals that are immaterial, won't happen, too low value. So I think that's incredible. But it sounds complicated. You know, we think of all the legacy systems that we have, the disparity, CRM systems are not as populated as they need to be. If you put garbage in, you kind of get garbage out. How do tools like what Ebsta offers help with that, or how do they still provide the insight despite the fact that maybe we haven't delivered everything that we need to have the insight we might want?
Well, I mean, the first answer to your question is we've just got to stop relying on reps to manually log anything, because once we rely on humans, then you just can't scale it to the levels that you need to. But actually, their activity, the data itself is there. It's already within the business, so we can look at the data from its source. So we don't need the reps to push buttons to log their emails or their calendar events or meetings or their calls. We can just grab the call data and the meetings and the emails at source, and that gives us a good indicator as to whether you're actually getting the traction and engagement with the relevant stakeholders in the deals that you're looking for.
And how does engagement correlate to forecasting in terms of, does it mean that we're more likely to close if we're more engaged? Or does it just mean that someone might like talking to us? Is there a correlation that you can draw?
So there's a huge difference between activity and engagement, right? So just because I'm emailing you 10 times a day or leaving you 5 voicemails doesn't mean you're actually engaging with me, right? But actually, if you respond and how often you respond, or if we spend more than a minute and a half on the phone, or you call me, that would suggest that actually there is some engagement going on here. And what's fascinating is that when we onboard a customer, we're able to go through all of their previously won deals and give every one of those deals, and we have visibility of all the activity that took place to achieve that close won status. So we're able to give every deal that's closed over the last, say, year an engagement score. Mm-hmm. And with that score can be used as a benchmark for future deals, for live pipeline. And it's amazing how accurate it is that if as a business you need to achieve a status of or an engagement score of 87 to get a deal done, it's consistent. You'll see, or that particular team will be consistently having to achieve that number.
Yeah, that's really helpful because it sort of gives you the predictable score, doesn't it? To see, you know more scientifically what you're aiming for. I think one of the things I wanted to pose is the question, is forecasting an art or a science? And I think we've long loved to believe that it's just an art, that some people are better at it and they know their customer or they know how they're going to bring a deal across the line. But actually, we can scientifically trap a lot of those data points and then predict, it sounds like, what is needed, which doesn't necessarily guarantee a win, but it does tell us that if we don't have a certain level of engagement, then our likelihood of securing that opportunity is reduced. Is that fair?
Yeah. So, and it's hard to gamify if the engagement score is directly linked to how well your customer is engaging with you rather than the other way around. And you'll see different teams within the same business will have very different scores that they have to achieve to achieve a close won status. But yeah, we have to stop relying on the reps manually logging anything. And coming back to one of your earlier questions, in the forecasting process at the moment, there's a lot of, we find customers fall into one or two categories. Either they're not doing very much forecasting at all, or they're spending a huge amount of time trying to lock down what the forecast actually is. And that includes the rep preparing for the forecasting meeting that's about to take place, and then an hour-long discussion and debate as to how close we are with that actual deal, all to try and put together a plan of action. And in reality, when you look at those sales meetings, a lot of the time is spent on deals that are going to close anyway. Yeah. The stuff that's very close to closing. How do we maximize the value of this deal? How do we close it this month instead of early next? Rather than looking at the volume of opportunities that are being worked upon that are perhaps earlier stage in the process. We had an interesting customer, another B2B SaaS business based in San Francisco that adopted our tech. And we were able to show them, the sales director in that business was explaining to us they had 150 reps all working, let's say 10 deals at a time. In their example they had, so that's 1,500 deals being worked on at any one time. And his challenge was, how does he add value? And he ended up spending his time just on the deals right at the close stage to try and help them get it over the line and get the deals done. When in reality, we were able to turn it on its head and show him a new way of forecasting that helped him to identify which deals weren't getting enough traction. Right? So instead of focusing on the deals that are just close to closing, he was now able to really dive into each individual rep's opportunities and stop them working on deals that weren't going anywhere. And helping them to fail faster meant that they could work on better opportunities.
It almost parallels, I think, what we often do when we're managing performance in a sales organization. We sort of beat up the bottom and give them a bit of attention because they're not doing well.
Yeah.
And then we hover around the top where they're going to get it done anyway.
Yeah.
But sort of where we could make a marginal but significant difference in the business, we sort of tend to not tend to those people. And I think the same sounds like it applies to the pipeline.
Very much so. And just moving focus away from perhaps some of the smaller deals that are getting too much attention and redirecting that focus onto the deals that are of a size that we're interested in and getting the engagement level up on those opportunities has a huge impact on close rates, on time to close, and on revenue.
Forecasting has always been important, though. I mean, so we can imagine that the level of engagement we have with our customers helps us to predict and forecast more accurately. Yeah. But, why is it seeming to be a hotter topic? Because I think every board has wanted to know with a fair measure of accuracy what's coming in. What has changed?
I think there's two things that have changed. First of all, the sales funnel has become a flywheel. Okay, so instead of just selling to a customer once, there's an ongoing, recurring revenue stream from most customers these days. Everything's as a service now. In fact, for Christmas, I got chocolate as a service, which I thought was fantastic.
That's the best service yet.
Amazing, right? I didn't realize that was a thing. So this idea that we achieve an end date with a customer and we get a deal done and then we move off is no longer as true anymore. So this flywheel is more important than ever. And actually maintaining relationship with the customer, growing trust with the customer so that they then spend more money, so that you then provide more value, so that they then spend more money, and so on, becomes this flywheel. And if you get it right, it leads to exponential growth. The other thing that's changed is that every business is a multinational now. Okay, so Ebsta is a a self-funded startup. There's 37 people in the business now, of which a third of them are based in California. And we've got an office in Australia now as well. And we've got customers in 37 countries. And that's not unusual. There are almost every company out there these days that can service customers all over the globe. And so the opportunity for scale has never been clearer. Okay, I saw a great quote the other day that suggested that we've never run faster, but we're never going to run slower again.
Canadian Prime Minister.
There you go. That was it.
At Davos a couple of years ago.
And it's a phenomenal quote because the opportunity for any business now to service the globe is phenomenal. And so scale is available everywhere. And so in the past, a small business maybe didn't need as much focus on forecasting because they only had 1 or 2 sales reps. Well, if you've got deals going on while you're sleeping and you've got sales teams all around the world, then it's so important that you start measuring and running your business by the data.